Welcome. The board now reconvenes this meeting of the Plano ISD Board of Trustees in open session at 7:07 p.m. on June 7th, 2016 at the Plano ISD Administration Building. I am Missy Bender, President of the Plano ISD Board of Trustees. On the board's behalf, I wish to extend a warm welcome to all who are present and to our web and video viewers. We will conduct our meeting focusing on the district's two major goals. 1, ensure continued improvement in student learning, and 2, ensure efficient use of financial resources and budgeting. Let me introduce my fellow trustees and staff. Seated to my left are Dr. Brian Bingley, Superintendent of Schools, Nancy Humphrey, Board Vice President, Trustees Tammy Richards and David Stolley, Susan Modisette, Assistant Superintendent for Campus Services, and Dr. Jim Wusso, who's Assistant Superintendent of Academic Services, is celebrating a milestone occasion with his son this week. Seated to my right are Carolyn Mobius, Board Secretary, Trustees Marilyn Hinton and Dr. Yoram Solomon, Dr. Carrie Cooper, Assistant Superintendent of District Services, Steve Fortenberry, Chief Financial Officer, Dan Armstrong, Assistant Superintendent for Technology Services, Carla Oliver, Assistant Superintendent for Government, Community, and Planning Initiatives, and Denise Gillespie, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Board of Trustees. I'd like to take a moment to thank members of our Instructional Technology Department for serving as our greeters and for distributing agendas and comment cards. Please join us in applauding these staff members for their assistance this evening. Thank you. At this time, I invite Dr. Yoram Solomon to share an inspirational message.
Okay, welcome everyone. You know, when my first daughter Maya was born, when she was a year old, she started walking, and as soon as after she started walking, she started running, and the first thing that happened was she fell. And you know what the first thing that they do when they fall? They look at us. They look at us to see how we react. And if we go, they're going to start crying. But if we go, get up, keep going, they'll get up and go. Why am I telling you all of this? Last week was a very interesting week for us, and that's to say the least. A story broke out, and we received a lot of communications about it. And I don't want to address the issue itself, but really the discourse around it. Some of the letters, emails, phone calls, and posts that we received were using very strong and somewhat inappropriate language. And they came from parents, students, and even people who were neither parents nor students, or even from Texas. I can understand passion, but the language in those messages was really disheartening to me. The whole issue this week surrounded the National Honor Society. And my position on the matter is irrelevant, but I wanted to quote one of the 4 eligibility requirements to be a member of the National Honor Society, and it's called character. Character. The student of good character is cooperative, demonstrates high standards of honesty and reliability, shows courtesy, concern, and respect for others. I hope we can all learn to argue issues in our community with the utmost passion, but also with respect. On a different note, the conversation last week was also around the 40-year school tradition, and I don't want us to miss the fact that last week a new tradition was created. The tradition that started with the first graduation of the Academy High School. And although I'm the only trustee that did not take part in the creation of this academy, I wanted to congratulate the board, the rest of the board, and the academy for the first graduation. With that, I look forward to the graduation we're going to have this Thursday in 2 days. And now please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now move on to the recognition part of our agenda. Ms. Oliver, do we have any student guests to be recognized this evening?
As a matter of fact, we do. And I'm looking for the card that was given to me. with the information. I believe it may be right here. So if you'll be patient for me for just a second, I want to be sure that I say it just right. And here it is. So I would like to offer recognition for those in Girl Scout Troop number 6600. If you would please stand and let us welcome you. You all look great in your uniforms, and we appreciate you being here.
Now, before you sit down, it's me again. Before you sit down, I want to say a few words. The Plano Girl Scout Troop 6600 donated 830 books to the Plano Family Literacy School. And I asked Jane Lilliston, the director of that school, the coordinator, and this is what she said, so I'm reading her words. This effort has made a huge impact on the Plano school community. When asked, the girls said that they chose this project because they felt reading opens up many doors and they wanted to share the gift with other children. Plano Family Literacy School appreciates all the time and effort that went into this big project and is very appreciative of Troop 6600. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us this evening. I think this might be one of the first occasions we've had the opportunity to welcome Girl Scouts at one of our meetings. So hopefully you're setting a new precedent for some other Girl Scouts to join us too, so welcome. For our next recognition, the Excellence in Financial Reporting Award, I call upon Steve Fortenberry to make this announcement and introductions. And then I will ask Vice President Nancy Humphrey to make a special presentation.
Thank you, President Bender. Tonight it's my honor to announce that Plano ISD has once again earned the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This award is presented annually by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, and it's the highest recognition for financial reporting that a school district can receive. Plano ISD's comprehensive annual financial report was judged by an impartial panel, found to meet high standards, including demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate the school district's financial story and to motivate potential users and user groups to read it. This marks the 33rd year, all consecutive, that Plano ISD has earned this award. In fact, Plano ISD has received this recognition for so long it might become tempting just to think of it as routine, but I think that would be a big mistake. A tremendous amount of effort goes into earning the recognition. According to GFOA's database, there are only 14 school districts in the entire nation that have received the award more than 33 times, so we're in very elite company. Achievement of the award would not be possible without the hard work of all the members of the Financial Services Department. We have many of them here tonight. Leading that team effort is Executive Director Linda Madden. She's been there for all of those 33 years. Board members have come and gone, superintendents have come and gone, CFOs have come and gone. But the one constant, that's not funny, the one constant has been Linda. She was showing me one of the first one we did, and actually I had signed it. I told her that my signature had certainly suffered over the last 33 years, or my penmanship had. But Linda's the only one that's been here all those 33 years in the finance department. So I offer my congratulations to Linda and her entire staff. At this time, I'd ask Linda to come forward to be presented with the award by Nancy Humphrey. After which I'm sure Linda will want to recognize other members of her team.
I think that there's a constant here. And I think you're going to have to find a new wall, because we probably don't have any more room.
We have a long hallway.
All right, congratulations. It's quite a distinctive honor. Good job.
A few years ago, GFOA went to we have a very nice kind of marble plaque, and they just give you a little round circle for the different years. So we have plenty of room for more. I did just want to say thank you tonight to Dr. Bingley, President Bender, and the members of the board for this time of recognition. Clearly, in our mind, it is quite an honor to receive an award of this level for this length of time, and it is an example of our expertise, I think, our long years of service and dedication from several members in our department, and that's always a help when you have a constant team. And I wanted to recognize there are some here tonight, certainly not all of us, but if they would please stand and be recognized. I'll just give you a quick rundown. We have, y'all don't sit down yet. This is Christy Tate. She's our Director of Budget and Accounting. Veronica Cousin is we call her the Compliance Officer, so she is the super Mr. Fun Police Patrol person, Carrie. We have Sally Winches in our accounting group. Karen Stanley oversees the PASAR part of finance. Kathy Wasco is our expert bond. You've heard her name used some here lately on capitalization items, and Kathy is our bond and special revenue accountant, and Rita Hughes is from our accounting group. So thank you very much, ladies. I know Dr. Bingley likes facts and figures and little takeaways on different.
I enjoy them.
So I looked up some of that today, and I just wanted to share some of this with you. That so we have 27 of us in the Financial Services Department, and from all of us, with our total years of experience in Plano ISD, we have 361 years of total experience with the district. Now, we haven't all been in finance all that time, but there are 16 of us who have only worked in the finance department for a total of 190 years of experience with Plano ISD. So quite an accomplishment there. And then just some little comparison between our reports. And yes, I just showed this to Steve a few minutes ago. This is the 1982-83, our very first report. You can see it is a nice little small 60-inch report with Stephen Fortenberry right there in the front, signed.
And it's legible.
It's legible. It's legible. It is. And that lovely little report showed our governmental fund revenue at basically $71 million and our expenditures at $77 million. The award tonight is for the 2014-15 report. You can see it is just a little bit thicker, to the tune of 140 pages. And now our revenue is basically general fund revenue, governmental fund revenue of $670 million, not 70, but $670 million, and $691 million in expenditures. So quite a change from the start to where we are tonight. And just to maybe give you just a little flavor of the scope of the responsibilities and maybe the magnitude of the daily operational place that we live in our department. Just wanted to share with you that we oversee and manage over right at 64,000 accounts in the general ledger, and all those little account numbers have 23 digits to them. Governmental accounting is a fund accounting type of process, and we have 845 different funds in our general ledger. We have, you may worry about balancing your one bank account for the month. We have 17 bank accounts that we manage on a daily basis, literally a daily basis, with cash and reports and just funding to be sure we're where we need to be on those accounts every single day, even during the Christmas break. We had prepared during the 14-15 year 162,000 plus payroll direct deposits or checks. That's done by a team of 5 ladies, 162,000 plus. We've posted over 101,000 invoices, and we've processed over 29,000 checks and direct deposits through our accounts payable department. So clearly a lot of moving parts, a lot of little pieces that get pulled together and combined and organized in this very set format and presentation that is required for the GFOA certificate. So just want to say again, thank you to this team, and it really is a team effort, and it does take paying attention to the details on a daily basis to make this report possible. So again, thank you so much.
I just have to add, being that I was an auditor in my past life and I did audit school districts, it does just please me so much to hear numbers and, that all the information that I know what you have to gather together, and it's unbelievable, but thank you so much.
That's what I call girl power. All the folks who stood were women. I don't know what the percentage is in the department, but that's some girl power. Okay. We will now move to the regular public comment portion of our agenda. For the public comment portion of our agenda, the board has public comment cards that were accepted from 6 to 7 p.m. Cards are not accepted after 7 o'clock and are not transferable to other parties or speakers. All cards were collected and given to Carla Oliver or a representative of the Communications Department, who will present these speaker cards during this time. Ms. Oliver, do we have any speakers for public comment?
President Bender, we do. We have 4 cards that all appear to be non-agenda items.
Okay, so for the non-agenda speakers, the 4 who have signed up, that portion of our agenda is the last item on our agenda. So at this time, we're going to proceed with the agenda-related topics, and we will hear your comments at the conclusion of the meeting. Let us now address the consent agenda, which includes personnel recommendations, minutes of previous meetings, bids, purchases, and construction items. Are there any requests to remove an item or items from the consent agenda for further discussion?
President Bender, I would like to lift item O, approval of compensation plan document for 2016-2017 for discussion.
Okay. Any others? All right, so the discussion on this particular topic will take place later in the meeting under the agenda, items for discussion and action. We will call that item 8D, okay? So that is, section 8 is the items for discussion and action, so following A, B, and C, we'll tackle that item next. If I have, all right, may I have a motion and a second to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
I move we approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. With the approval of the consent agenda, I now call upon our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Brian Bengali, to announce some administrative appointments, to be followed by Susan Modisette, who will also announce some administrative appointments. Dr. Bengali.
I gotta look at my.
Or you can turn it over to her.
Do you want to do these or do you?
I've got the first appointment.
Okay.
I have the first appointment. So
Okay.
I'll go ahead and proceed. Thank you. It's my honor to introduce our new Executive Director for Instructional Technology, Mr. Matt Fry. Please stand, Matt. Keep standing, Matt, and he's in attendance this evening with his wife, Michelle. So if you could please stand also. Matt brings to us a rich history of instructional technology that he brought to him with him from Brevard County, Florida, where his superintendent is from. So thank you for being here, and he's new to the area, so please welcome him if you see him in the hallways. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Susan.
I'm really trying to contain my excitement. So this is just such a special night for us. And I have the pleasure of introducing 5 new principals to our Plano ISD team. And as I look out in the audience, I'm going to deviate for just a moment because there are so many principals and assistant principals, counselors who are here, who have helped support and lead and mentor some of these folks. And I want to be sure I don't leave anyone out. So before I introduce our new appointments, if you're one of those people who has impacted the life of our new administrative appointments, would you please stand and let us recognize you?
Although like mentors.
Thank you, and thank you for your leadership. I'd like to start out tonight introducing our new principal at Centennial Elementary, Sarah Stewart. Next, I'm thrilled to introduce our newest principal at Hager Elementary, Katie Britton, and Katie is joined this evening by her husband, Steve, and her beautiful daughters, Sarah and Emma. Next, we are just delighted to welcome somebody who is coming to us from outside our school district, and we've shared with Tally, we so rarely do this, where we hire a principal in with no previous experience in Plano, but our interview committee was just so impressed and taken with both Tally's experience and her passion, particularly in the area of bilingual education. So I'm just thrilled to introduce Tally Gomez, who will be our new principal at Foreman Elementary. And Tally has some family members with her, her husband Arturo, and two gorgeous children, Arturo and Analia, and her brother and his children. So if you all would please stand and let us recognize you as well. Oh, and I forgot probably the most important person in this. Tally's mom is here, Susie Harris. Next, I'd like to introduce our newest principal at Mitchell Elementary, Bob Ferris. And Bob is joined tonight by his wife Vicki and their daughter Vanessa. Thanks for being here tonight. And last, I'd like to introduce our new principal at Aldridge Elementary, and if you'll just hold your applause for a minute while I introduce the village that's with Entrechamps, because this is really something special. Let me first congratulate and introduce Entrechamps Buell, who is our new principal at Aldridge Elementary. But Entrechamps is joined by 3 generations of women in her family. She's joined by her mom, Jerry, her grandmother, Gracie Poe, and her great-grandmother, Gustavia Houston.
So the girl power theme continues?
Yeah, Yay! Congratulations to all of you. We really look forward to your leadership and to supporting you in all the ways that we can.
So I always want to pretty much say the same thing because I mean it every time. First of all, to those we have recognized this evening, I want to say thank you. I was a part of interviewing all of you. You've stepped up in so many ways, and you're going to step up more now to make a difference for the young people in Plano ISD, and I want to thank you for that. But I always also then want to say thank you to the people who came with you this evening. First of all, for being here on this special night, I want to say thank you. But way beyond that, we've all done this work. And so I want to thank you for the love and the patience that you you've had before, and you're going to need even more now to allow these great folks to do the work that they do, because they can't do it any other way than the commitment that they give. And so on behalf of our organization and the children ultimately that they will serve, I will say thank you to all of you for that, all the support that you've given them along the way and will continue to do so. Thank you very much.
Congratulations and welcome. And if you choose to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to. If you choose to depart, you're welcome to do that too. At this time, the board will, did you want to say anything?
No, this is their first test of good judgment. Okay. You're passing with flying colors. No.
You can clear a room?
Okay, so while they're moving, at this time we will continue with our agenda items for discussion and action. The first is to initiate a process to explore the addition of one or more academies for grades 9 to 12. So I'll introduce this item that is for board action. At our board cabinet retreat recently, I think we had a lot of great, rich discussion. And one of the items we discussed was how we could put a process in place that we could utilize when we wanted to explore either the addition of one or more academies at 9 to 12 or undertake the initial study of one or more academies in the range of K to 8. So we discussed moving forward with both ideas, and the first action is to appoint a board subcommittee that would include trustees Nancy Humphrey, Dr. Yorm Solomon, and David Stolley, who all volunteered to study the opportunity to add one or more high school-based academies, define the objective of a new academy or academies, and develop the guiding principles to create the scope for additional development. David Hitt, the Director of Career and Technical Education, will assist the subcommittee in its work. So I think the idea is that you all would work over the summer and then, in the fall, bring forward the results of your work in the form of a recommendation to the board for its consideration.
During our retreat in Hawaii.
He is joking.
So, do I have a motion to approve the formation of this subcommittee and its scope of work?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. All right, the second item, similar to the first, with a slight fine-tune. The work that we just talked about, that board subcommittee is going to undertake, will be a reflection, or kind of the next step following that visioning committee work that took place in, I don't know, was it 2010, that time frame?
2010.
So that similar effort, if this were to take place with K to 8, would need to happen for a K to 8 initiative. We haven't done that body of work yet. So this group of trustees would do the precursor to the establishment of a bigger initiative. So that subcommittee of willing volunteers includes trustees Tammy Richards, Carolyn Mobius, and Marilyn Hinton, who will study the opportunity to develop one or more academies for grades 8, K to 8, define the objective of a new academy or academies, and develop guiding principles to create the scope for additional development. Susan Modisette, Assistant Superintendent for Campus Services, will assist this subcommittee in its work. So do I have a motion to approve the formation and scope of this committee?
I move that we approve the formation of this K to 8 initiative task force or subcommittee.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second that.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. All right, the next item is to approve the Board of Trustees, committees, and liaisons for the upcoming school year. I've taken all of your input into consideration, and to the best of my ability, I've tried to give you what you wanted. I hope you're satisfied. If not, we always have next year to make some more changes. Do I have a motion to accept the assignments as presented?
I move that we accept the assignments as presented.
Second?
Second.
Oops, sorry. All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, so at this point, we will now entertain the discussion related to the compensation plan that was pulled from the consent agenda. So this is the plan for 2017-18 that outlines the entire compensation program for the upcoming school year. Tammy, you wanted to have a little, I'm sorry, the 17-18, this is 16-17. Your head. Sorry, 16-17 school year. Tammy, would you like to?
Yes, the area that I would like to discuss is the area of stipends. We had a discussion of this in a previous meeting, wanted to explore better our process for determining stipends, possibly the equity of the stipends we have now. And I was anxious to see the results of that study. I believe that we were going to do not an extensive, but a quick one of our surrounding school districts, Frisco, Allen, and McKinney. And I know there was going to be some opportunity possibly in the August time period to reflect and possibly update these. And so I just wanted to understand if that was still the thinking of the administration, so we can know that we're going to be getting possibly some more content that we can study on this.
Dr. Cooper?
We have been working on it. We specifically have been working on that audience that works, those staff members who work with student groups outside of the regular school year, such as summer, winter break, spring break, where there are no contract days going on, and have been looking at those. I'll share some information with you in the coming days. I guess if I'm hearing you want whatever we have used up to this point to where we're leading toward our recommendation from that audience, and then we're doing a continuation of the bigger, instead of those groups that just work in the non-contract time, we will also look at those total groups, fine arts, athletics, campus teacher leadership, and come to you in August with a final recommendation. So I guess my question is, in what specifically would you like to see?
So when I believe there are a couple of components to the total compensation program. There's the salary component, the number of duty days related to that, and the stipend. So in my mind, it would be helpful just to understand the total package, the total program, because I understand the variables are sometimes hard to compare district to district. So would it be satisfactory in your mind, Tammy, that if the total package is comparable to the other total packages in the region, would that be helpful information to determine if what we're offering is satisfactory or compensatory for the work?
Yes, I believe so. So certainly understanding what our surrounding districts, because we compete for great personnel, that's the first cut. And then second, to ensure that we consider it intellectually sound, that we can feel comfortable about how we're making our own decisions in terms of who gets a stipend, who gets duty days, and covering particularly the teachers who have responsibility for students outside the typical school year, those summers, those breaks where they actually have oversight of children. I know that some of those days, from going through some of my old band and drill team mom information, it may be 2 hours in the morning and then 4 hours in the evening. So it may be that it could be an accumulation of hours, and to give that an equivalent to duty days. But I have concerns for teachers who have responsibility for our kids, making sure that they are appropriately compensated, appropriately and equitably compensated.
So, Carrie, would it be possible when you, in your continuation of research, that I know you guys have already started this, but in the report back, just, this would be satisfactory to me, and I think I'm hearing it would be satisfactory to you, just to understand the total program, because I understand that the duty day the way it's used is not always exactly an apples to apples comparison for every role. So that's how these, but collectively, the total package is a good number to use to mitigate those differences. If we could just see what our total compensation looks like for those roles and how that compares to the others, I think that sounds like that might be satisfactory.
And just making sure to make sure we're internally consistent with ourselves. So it's not just comparing to the external districts, but also comparing to selected other jobs to ensure that it is
Right.
apples to apples.
And the other piece, I will try, so Suzanne, help me remember some of these things. A couple of staff members in HR, specifically Suzanne Dropman, has been a great teammate in this, and with Miss Melvin and also Noel McBee. But as we go throughout this process, we are including the specific individuals who direct those departments as well. So I think that is important because we have their perspective, as they are going to have a much different lens than we are just looking at it from an HR compensation standpoint. So for example, Kathy Cuttis, who is over our fine arts, and then Gerald Brent's over athletics, and Susan Hayes with cheer and drill, and just looking and getting their feedback, of which we have included them all along the way as well. So we can make sure that we are being
Internally consistent.
We don't want to solve a problem and create four in doing those.
So what I'm hearing is that we have a compensation plan available for our acceptance tonight. And in August, there's the potential for an additional amendment to
the budget.
that, based on new information that you may discover in this summer study. So, okay?
You will get in the very soon the information that we have and recommendations that we would make on those specific things that Ms. Richards has mentioned with those individuals who work with student groups in those unusual times of the year when everybody else is not working. Because have had some pretty exhaustive conversations and done a lot of the foundational work on that already. So we should be able to share that. But the other is going to be down the road.
Okay.
I would say, from my perspective, what would be more significant from my point of view is a comparison as to who we're competing against, because the market will establish what's equitable.
Correct.
Because people will go to the job that pays the most with what is their desired, whatever their desires are. So,
typically, I think there will be some that the money will drive some of that, whether it's the salaries or the stipends. But I think most everybody would agree there's going to be some things that we're going to gain by reputation alone, and what programs we have, and that you can't really put a price tag on, but those are just things to kind of keep in. I know that's not what we're talking about right now, but there are some people that, given the opportunity to come here, they're going to ask how much I'm going to make. It's like I
think that's part of the marketplace. That's part of what drives employment in general, is that what we offer in terms of a total package that might be compensation, but in addition to compensation, other avenues, other opportunities, other benefits are certainly part of a market-driven, economy. So I'm really more interested in learning how we compare and compete with our neighbors, so that we maintain that competitive advantage.
Sure. Okay. We'll get that to the group in a pretty timely way.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, is the board willing to entertain a motion on the compensation plan for 2016-17 as it's been presented tonight?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Our next agenda item relates to our budget and proposed tax rate. I call on Steve Fortenberry to make the presentation. Mr. Fortenberry?
Thank you, President Bender. We've been discussing the budget and tax rate since November. Tonight kind of culminates the budget part of that process. The tax rate will actually be voted on in September. State law requires school districts to hold a public hearing prior to adopting the budget and/or tax rate to allow for public input. So that's the purpose of this first agenda item. But before opening the public hearing, would like to make just a brief presentation to give you the highlights of the proposed budget. We'll do that in terms of our three. Linda mentioned we have 840-something funds, but the three that you're legally required to adopt a budget for, the general fund, the food service fund, and the debt service fund. So we'll give you a quick run through with those. Nothing's really changed since we discussed this 3 weeks ago. But real quickly, if you look at our revenues in the general fund, you'll see a $39 million increase in local revenue. That's primarily the result of the property value increases, and when we apply the existing tax rate, it produces about $39 million more in local revenue. You'll see in a minute that that money ends up going to the state. There is a little bit of additional state revenue as they've increased the per capita rate, which we do get some benefit from. So all told, our total revenues and other sources will see an increase of about $43 million next year. If you break this down by source, about 89% of it comes from local revenue, about 8.4% from state, and then the remainder from federal revenue and transfers in primarily from the BASAR program. Appropriations by object, this is where we spend the money. You look at this two ways. The first is by object of expenditure, and payroll cost is by far our largest object. We're in the people business as far as our expenditures. There is a $13 million increase in payroll costs. That's primarily the result of the 3% raise that you approved at the last meeting and then confirmed with the vote on the compensation package a few minutes ago. The other two large items as far as changes, there is, as I mentioned earlier, almost a $41 million increase in the recapture payment to the state. That's based on the previous year's property value. It actually exceeds our increase in property tax collections that we're estimating for the 16-17 year. Also, because of the bond proposition approval back in May, we'll no longer need to make our transfer that we've been doing since 2013 into the capital projects fund, and so you'll see a reduction there of $14.5 million. I think a real quick way to summarize the budget would be that we have about $39 million more in tax revenues, but $40 million goes to the state in recapture. We're eliminating the transfer of $14.5 million to the capital projects fund, and for the most part, we're converting that to payroll. That's technically not how it works out, but if you wanted to summarize the budget, that's a very quick summary of it. If you look at the appropriations by object, I wanted to show you the impact of recapture. So this first slide shows you the appropriations by object including recapture. You'll see that 68% of our budget goes to payroll cost. The second largest piece is the piece in red, which is 17.7%, which is recapture. So outside of payroll cost, recapture is the largest item that we spend money on, and that's simply the Robin Hood payment to the state. If you take that out of the equation, then you see the more normal number of almost 85% of our budget for payroll costs, and then the second largest piece would be our purchased and contracted services of about 10%. So unfortunately, we're back in the situation where recapture is becoming a much larger portion of the pie each passing year. Another way of looking at expenditures is by function. Most of our money goes for instruction and instructional related. There's a $7.9 million increase in that category, and that's primarily the pay raise, and that would be mostly the teacher portion of that pay raise. In the other categories, you'll see some smaller increases, and most of those would also be due to the pay raise. Again, you see the transfers dropping by 14.5 million, and recapture going up by 40 million. Interesting to note, the total amount of appropriations or expenditure budget goes up by 35.8 million, but recapture went up by 40.8. So if you back that out, we actually had a $5 million decrease in our appropriations budget. Again, looking at the impact of recapture, in this slide, recapture is included, so 55% of our budget goes for instruction and instructional related expenditures. Again, almost 18% to recapture. If you take recapture out, 68% of our budget goes to instruction. So I think when recapture was a smaller amount, it was a smaller portion, but I think this shows you the huge impact that has on our overall budget. So the general fund budget summary, you'll see in the middle column, increase in revenue, or a total of revenues of about 584 million, appropriations of 576, which actually leaves us with an $8 million surplus for next year. And as we said in previous meetings, the reason that we're recommending the surplus is that next year that recapture payment to the state jumps from 102 million to almost 140, and so we'll need that to offset a portion of that increase in the recapture payment next year. As far as other funds, our food service fund, we have proposed budget including revenues of 24.7 million, appropriations of 26.1. Would actually show a decrease in our fund balance of about 1.4 million. Not to be alarmed, we generally underspend that budget by about $800,000 to $900,000, and we do have an adequate fund balance. So we'll continue to keep an eye on the FAN's budget next year. The debt service fund budget would be balanced with revenues of 119.5 million and appropriations of the same amount. The appropriations does include the estimated payments on our new debt, which we will issue later this summer. And our fund balance at the end of the year is projected to be about 28.6 million, which seems like a large amount, but on August 15th, we have about a $14.5 million interest payment, so it gets drawn down very quickly after the end of the year. The proposed tax rate, although you're not voting on it tonight, this was included in our advertisement that was published in the paper. We are proposing the same tax rate for both M&O and INS, so our total rate would be $1.439. Again, we'll vote on that in September. That should still leave us the second lowest in Collin County. I did call Farmersville, my cohort ran there, Sharon McGuire, to plead with her to please raise their tax rate. So we could say we had the lowest, and she said their debt payment stayed the same and they weren't going to lower it, so we'll be stuck for the lowest, which I think is pretty good shape. If Frisco's TRE is successful, they would be up at close to $1.59, I guess, so the distance between us and third from last will be a pretty big gap if that's successful. So that concludes the presentation, and I think you're ready now to conduct a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Fortenberry. At this time, I will open the public hearing about the budget and the proposed tax rate. I welcome any audience members who wish to speak on these two topics to please do so at the front of the room at this podium. And with no one wishing to speak, I will now close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So
Do I have a second?
second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously.
Can I wish to speak?
You may now. We've closed the public hearing.
I get it. You know, I can't help myself. Of course, Steve has pointed out enough to folks in the audience the reality of revenue and recapture. You know, it's taken me a year, but I've come to terms. Well, not really, but I understand it. I will point out for me, we have When you look, there's only one category that Plano outspends per student the rest of the state, and that's in instruction. In every other category, we are behind. We have a one-pager that talks about efficiencies and priorities. And if you look at what we just had described this evening, what you'll see in the appropriations by function are only going to drive those percentages further. Our largest number by a lot is instruction and instruction related. Second highest is pupil support, and third is instructional and school leadership. I just can't echo enough that this school district has done a phenomenal job for a long time, putting the money and the resources to where it can help our children the most. And that does not happen by accident any more than 33 years of GFOA. So I just want to make sure that we talk about that. You know, we're now at 68%. I don't know if you remember many of you years back where states tried to pass laws that school districts had to spend 65% of their money on instruction, and they went down in flames because people said you couldn't do that. And Plano is at 68%. So I just want to commend everybody in this organization for the priorities that we keep.
Thank you for bringing up recapture, because I do have one thing to add on that, and that is that having 17% of your revenues delivered back to the state is absurd. 17.7 is absolutely absurd. That number is growing annually as our property values increase, and that the amount of money that is kept at the state level is going to continue to increase. Speaker Strauss has asked that this be analyzed and reviewed in anticipation of a potential battle in the next legislative session over school funding. And so I think as a board, we owe a duty to our taxpayers to monitor that closely, and actually to do more than monitor that closely, to actually affirmatively help in any way we can, because this system, as it sits now, is far from imperfect. It is going into levels that are unsustainable. And we may have an opportunity to change that, and so we, as in the 7 of us on this board, need to be at the forefront of that, watching what is happening, understanding what is happening, so that we can then assist our representatives to make a positive change for this community.
I guess I'll point out one quick thing. I think there was a big misunderstanding with the coverage of tax increases in the area. Well, we haven't had a tax increase, and you can see that we are not proposing a tax increase. People's tax payment went up because their property values went up. So they actually have a more valuable asset than they had 3 years ago. But that does put a burden on people. But I wanted to make certain that people understand we are not raising taxes. However, property values do go up, and so therefore the payment goes up.
And the value of the increase in the payment, all of that goes to Austin.
That's right.
None of it
That
stays here.
increase, you're right. That's that 18% of the pie, the red.
So in this case, in this case, I just wanted to add one more thing, and that is, because that's something that I've heard, why don't you lower the tax rate so that we're not going to take the extra $40 million that we're taking? And the problem is that we can lower our tax rate, but we're still going to have to pay the extra $40 million because we're being taxed by the state on our ability to collect taxes and not on the actual taxes that we collect.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Our next action item related to the budget is the adoption of the 2016-17 general fund, debt service, and food service budgets. do you have any other information you want to say about that before we take action?
No, we're asking you to adopt what we presented and what's in your packet. I would like to thank the finance department, giving them lots of accolades tonight, but they not only produced the audit report at the end of the year, but they worked very diligently putting the budget together as well. And so thanks to Linda and the whole staff for the work on this over the past 8 months as well.
Okay, so
And also to the HR department, who helps us a lot with the position allocations and so forth with the schools. It's definitely a team effort.
Thank you. So the administration is recommending the adoption of the 16-17 general fund, debt service, and food service budgets as presented. Do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt the 2016-17 general fund, debt service, and food service budgets.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. The motion passes unanimously. So now we can pay people and we can spend money next school year. All right, we're now on item 11 of our agenda, which relates to reports. And just to set a little context, the board has 5 advisory committees each year, and they spend time as community members and staff members and parents and such learning about that area that they may serve on. And tonight we're hearing from 2 committees. One is the Diversity Advisory Committee and the other is the Gifted Advisory Committee. So these are people who volunteer their time to serve. They have a scope of work that they undertake. For the first time, maybe, I guess in a long time, or maybe ever, I'm not sure, the board assigned each of these 5 committees a special task, objective that we felt was important to study, to be in concert and a contributor to the realization of our strategic plan. So tonight we're hearing the annual report of those recommendations from these 2 committees, and first up is going to be the Diversity Advisory Committee. And the chairman is Nisha Springer. And Nisha, I believe you're making the report?
Yes.
Okay. So,
let me click the...
Okay.
Good evening, members of the PISD Board, President Bender, Superintendent Bingley, district staff, and community members. During the 2015-2016 academic year, the Diversity Advisory Committee, or DAC, consisted of 7 campus administrators, 3 community members, 9 parents, 1 teacher, and 2 district liaisons. As you can see, the board goal for our committee, which is presented in our slide, we established a set of guiding questions to assist our work after listening to and reading a diverse array of input. We received input from Teresa Biggs, Academic Coordinator, Donna Hartman, former PISD Diversity Academic Coordinator, DAC committee members, Paul Weaver, Director of Counseling, and an article published in the Journal of Research and Practice called Ready or Not, Here We Come by Harrell P. and Forney W. in 2011. We identified 4 impact areas, and they were students, parents, community, and campus. We set a course of work for us by setting up the following guiding questions to guide our work. And they were to identify community members or groups that may assist us in our work. How can we help students from underrepresented groups understand the value of enrolling in upper level courses? How can we better support parents from underrepresented groups for success? How can we better communicate with parents from underrepresented groups? How can we provide support to parents and students to help them be successful once the students are enrolled in upper level courses? For the EOS to be successful, that is the Equal Opportunity Schools to be successful and sustainable, the Diversity Advisory Committee presents 4 recommendations. Recommendation number 1, to involve our community members, organizations, and groups It's important that we involve our community leaders who represent similar cultural and ethnic backgrounds. School board, we would like to see the school board, administrators, faculty and staff, the PTA, friends and secondary students, PISD parent ed programs, etc. We would also like to see the involvement of non-profit organizations such as Communities in Schools, LULAC, Boys and Girls Club, Rainbow Coalition, and resident and neighborhood groups, as well as religious organizations. Our second recommendation is to provide support to students and parents to become successful in upper level courses. To develop a comprehensive DAC website to support the EOS initiative. To reach out to parents at the elementary and middle school stages to provide information regarding the process and benefits for their child to take AP courses. To increase accessibility to mobile computer labs and other resources so that parents can gain additional knowledge regarding PISD goals, interests, and the district's commitment. Assign academic mentors to families to meet bi-monthly to answer questions and concern. To provide resources for college readiness, to explain the correlation between careers and education requirements to parents via information meetings, newsletters, and parent education classes. We also would like to see an expansion of the scholarships for low SES and underrepresented families to help pay for AP class materials and exams. To facilitate a parent-to-parent informal group interaction in schools so that parents who have had kids in AP and honors courses can answer questions regarding the process and experience. Our third recommendation is to communicate with parents. Survey parents for their perspective regarding AP and honors courses, what works, what does not work, attitudes of teachers teaching AP and honors courses, expectations and limitations. To host an orientation for incoming PISD parents to create awareness from the beginning. A parent-to-parent opportunity to share inside information about programs and curriculum. To invite parents whose kids have taken AP and honors courses to share their experience from a parent perspective. To plan an awareness campaign in multiple languages, since that will foster a welcoming environment and create a less intimidating experience for parents. To build meaningful relationship with parents, make personal phone calls, to invite parents of students from underrepresented groups that have been identified as potential candidates for gifted programs. Our fourth recommendation is to plan for sustaining the students in upper level courses once they have enrolled in it. Success in coursework leads to future success. The mentoring relationship with members who are ethnic minority professionals or business members in the community will instill a belief that doing well and finding success in higher level coursework will ensure future success. To create an environment that promotes value regarding academic success by providing experiences similar to being part of a booster club, athletic club, or a fine arts club. Field trips to universities to attend off-campus lectures so that students can experience a college environment. Partnership with business communities to adopt a student or family and provide financial help to cover expenses for AP course materials and exams and possibly provide financial aid for when they go to college. More credits, less cost. To explain the incentives for taking advanced placement courses. Parents who have not been to college or who are first-generation immigrants need to see the economics of taking advanced placement courses. As you can see from this slide, we found in consulting with Teresa Biggs that there were quite a few overlapping discoveries between the work of the Gifted and Talented Advisory Committee and our committee. In conclusion, according to the Harold P. and Forney W. 2011 article from Journal of Research and Practice, Ready or Not, Here We Come. First-generation students need models and mentors to help them navigate the college system, as this knowledge may not be available to their families from family members who have not had this experience before. Assistance may be required prior to enrollment in college during the process of applying for financial aid and selecting a post-secondary school to attend. Assistance may continue to be required in areas such as course selection, course scheduling, and locating resource materials. Many students will need extensive mentoring if they are to persist in coursework necessary to obtain a bachelor's degree. We believe that by the time a student gets to high school, it is too late for them to enroll and successfully complete higher level courses that will help prepare them for the rigors of college academics. College readiness starts when a child enters at elementary school. This is when both students and parents have to be mentored and coached about basic information such as PACE, honors, and AP courses, as well as navigating the PISD school system. We encourage the board and staff to make a long-term commitment and vision to implement and succeed at this initiative by taking it seriously and provide a means to sustain the programs. There are many benefits to this initiative and improving the diversity of our school district. There is no country in this world that is as diverse as the United States of America. And we experience that in a very significant way right here in Plano. Our district has a unique opportunity to make a significant contribution to our nation by preparing a diverse group of high-achieving students who can compete in the global market. Thank you. At this time, if I may I please also have the members of our committee just stand up who have put in a great amount of work this year towards making this presentation possible.
Nisha, can you introduce the folks who are here?
Yes.
Or introduce yourselves and tell us where you're from. Are you a community member or a staff member?
I'm Zan Brightmore, and I have a student in PISD, and I'm your chair-elect.
Okay.
Deborah Bonner, I'm the assistant principal at Shell Oliver. Leonard Hart, Meadows Elementary assistant principal. Women Elementary Formation School. Jenny Wakefield, I'm a teaching fellow at QMC, and also a parent for students. Tanya Bates, the assistant principal at Thomas Elementary. Ashmi Agree, I'm a parent volunteer.
And I'm Nisha Springer, I'm a parent volunteer.
Audrey Daniel, Human Resources.
Well, thank you. If I understand it correctly, we'd like for Teresa to go ahead and make her report next before the board asks questions, because they have the same goal. And there probably are lots of similarities. So why don't we let Teresa go next and jot down your questions or comments if you have them, and then we'll tackle all of them at the end of her presentation. And I don't know that I laid this out properly, but just to be clear, the objective that we assigned to both of these committees is the same. We have undertaken a very important initiative this year as a district called Equal Opportunity Schools. And that was, we received a large funding grant from the Google Foundation, and we matched it. And they looked at students, they identified students that were in our school district that were underrepresented in AP and IB classes. So these are students that are not traditionally enrolling, and we want to close the opportunity gap for them, to find them, enroll them, and help them to be successful. So we asked both of these committees to help us put a plan together to identify the groups that can help us to, make this a successful initiative, because it takes the whole community getting behind this very culture-related change. So the Diversity Committee shared their feedback, and now we're going to hear from the Gifted Talented Advisory Group. Teresa Biggs.
Right, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to speak to you. You'll see that there's some overlap. I'll move through this very quickly, but I would like to point out that we began this work with Equal Opportunity Schools in August of this year, and as the committees met and we moved through the year, some of this work that we point out as needing to be done is already underway. So on my slides, I have little asterisks next to the ones work that's underway, and I'll just kind of talk you through that. So our goal was the same as the diversity group, except our group is made up of parents of students in the gifted program, and we looked at it through the lens of the gifted student. Just as it's a national problem that we have underrepresentation in advanced courses, it's also a national problem that we have underrepresentation of certain groups in our gifted programs. So that's the way we approach this. We had many questions, but they really boil down to these three, which are very similar to the questions that the DAC committee just presented, and we responded with the following recommendations. Expanding media outreach, and our committee was very forceful that we needed to have more video. The video should be on district web pages and campus web pages, and it should be in multiple languages. That we need to be sensitive to the language challenge with some of our community members. Campus presentations, we do have campus presentations, but the committee pointed out that they weren't always on nights where they were highly attended, like the traditional open house where everyone comes. That's not usually where our PACE presentations would happen. That would be a place we might want to do that. However, we did bring forward the idea that some of the very people that we want to reach are not necessarily able to attend those meetings, so we have to be more creative in reaching out to those community members. A non-traditional outreach, the asterisk there really underscores the fact that we are bringing in 2 members of our community to reach into the African American community and Hispanic community to spread the message of advanced academics and of our gifted services. And we're asking these 2 members to build bridges between each campus and those communities to create a long-standing, self-sustaining relationship. Expanding translation services, we know we have much of our PACE material is in Spanish, but that is the only language currently, and we could certainly, even our Spanish documents could be expanded beyond what we currently have. We are looking for stronger ESL and bilingual support for our gifted program, and I'm really excited about this. Of working with Lori Taylor and Ronnie Cantu. We've already trained our ESL specialists at the elementary level on gifted services this year, and we're about to have a 3-day training for the bilingual teachers at the elementary level this summer, and they will now become part of the placement process in helping determine whether or not students from these groups need or would benefit from gifted services. So that's already well underway. Then the next category will be parent support. Regularly scheduled updates about the PACE program. I felt confident we did this, and the committee pointed out that yes, we did, but consistency varied from campus to campus, so we need to beef up that consistency. PACE newsletters, we have those, but they once again suggest we need a stronger presence with other media, and we need to beef up a website. They would like to see a district website specific to gifted services. What we have right now is informational related primarily to how to refer a child for gifted services, and they like to see more curricular information on that page. Currently, we do not have parent-teacher conferences required for every child. They would like to see more parent-teacher conferences with the gifted specialists and the students. This is easily done at our lower enrollment campuses, but at our higher enrollment campuses where we might have over 200 gifted students and 1 or 2 gifted specialists, that becomes a little bit more of a challenge, but we're certainly looking at that. Developing parent workshops that really focus on the social and emotional needs of the gifted students. A lot of times parents just, we all seek help in raising our children, and sometimes this special group of kids, you need a little bit more insight on how to work with these kids. So we're excited about that idea, and they would like to see that also offered in multiple languages. That also feeds into the next point about networking and support groups for parents. We do have in our area, SAGE and SANG are 2 parent groups that support parents of gifted kids, but we don't have anything specifically coming out of PISD that will be tied to a campus in the way that the committee would like to see. So that's something we're exploring. Annual program evaluations. We did a program evaluation last year, but we haven't done annual program evaluations. That's something that we could easily implement. And when we did it last year, we also had it in Spanish as well. So that would be something we'd want to continue and in the future possibly include other languages. The lending library bullet is actually for parents. They like to see a parent lending library and also include audio books for parents that do not speak English, that it would be easier for them possibly to listen to the information than it would be to read the information. So we appreciate that idea. And that our curriculum unit documents would be a little bit more transparent than they are currently. And that is something that I've already talked to the PACE specialists about, and that is easily remedied. Then our last category is student support. The committee suggests that we open the campus for library and technology access at least once a night on every campus to allow parents and families that don't have the ability to get to a library or have technology to take advantage of that. The committee also requested a review of staffing. They would like to see a full-time gifted specialist return to all of the elementary campuses, and that would bleed into the next bullet, that the specialist would act as a resource for the teaching teams. Currently, that is part of what our PACE specialists do, but on the campuses that share PACE specialists, that becomes a little more difficult because of the time constraints. Enrichment services for underrepresented student groups. We had the Discover program in the past that worked with kids that were on the bubble that had the ability, but perhaps not the academic experiences to move into gifted services, and they would like to see that resurrected in some form. And I've had discussion with a PACE specialist and actually had a meeting yesterday with one where we are looking at recovering the curriculum documents from the Discover program and putting them in a place where it would be available for all teaching teams at all elementary campuses to use on an as-needed basis. And then finally, stress management skills, and I would say this is probably for all of us, is that we be a little more conscious of how to manage stress, and that we start teaching the students when they're very young how to manage what's coming their way, and that becomes more critical as they move into a heavier load of work in the secondary level, and they're starting to feel the pressure of AP courses and grades and college admission, that we be a little more conscious of that need in our community. And then, if you just bear with me for a few minutes, I did want to point out to you some of the things that are going on with Equal Opportunity Schools, because what these items I have up here, they address some of the concerns of the DAP committee as well as the Gifted committee. The Outreach Task Force and Outreach Partner, I mentioned the partner. We have Outreach Task Force being developed on our high school and senior high school levels, and those relationships are really going to be part of our work next year to start to build those bridges. We're in the process of developing the AP Scholar Retreat, which is a 4-module training for students that are new to the AP courses, and this would help them understand the study skills necessary, teach them how to approach and interact with complex text, but also address things such as how do you calendar for a project. If you receive a project, how do you chunk that up so you can hit your deadline? We also have a module having to do with brain research and mindset. So all of that is meant to prepare all students, not just our EOS students, but all students that are interested in how to approach more rigorous coursework. We're asking that our AP teachers not only attend College Board training, but AVID training to expand their toolbox so they're able to scaffold and support our students more than perhaps they have in the past. And I can tell you, as someone who taught AP my entire career, 20 years ago, when Plano was not quite as rich of a community, we tended to teach to a more narrow band of student. Now our toolbox needs to be a little bit wider. We know the kids have the ability, but they may not have had the experiences yet to get them there. So they just need a little more support, but there's no doubt we'll get them there. Then the district is putting together an advanced academic council that will be made up of teachers, campus administrators, district administrators, and students would come in on an as-needed basis to help provide direction for this work as we move forward. And I would see this council, in my thinking, there would be something that would be a permanent council to help direct the work and to make sure that every voice was represented at the table. Then Overcoming the Achievement Gap is a book by Anthony Mohammed, who is a guru in the field of equity literacy. and the principals, secondary principals, experienced this book study this year. This is something we're inviting all secondary campuses to share with their teachers to help them understand how to work with a more diverse group of students. And increased training for AP teachers, not just AVID, but that we would have the Heart of AP is an intensive training we're developing for AP teachers to really kind of explore the idea of what success is in an AP class. And it's not just about the score, and it's not just about saving money and getting kids to college, even though that's incredibly valuable, but it's really at the heart of it, it's about helping our kids become learners and having them be really comfortable with rigorous coursework, so when we do get them to college, they stay there and they succeed. I'm not sure if I have committee members here. Hang on. Do I have any committee members in the room? It's girl power. I'm on my own.
They're at the night library.
I know that was very fast, but we thought since our goals were very much the same, that we would do this, and then we're here to answer any questions that the board might have.
Could I just make one comment?
Please.
Thank you, Nancy,
Sure.
before we turn it over. I'd just like to take an opportunity in Jim's absence to recognize the leadership that Teresa and Lisa Thibodeau also have brought to this. This is a yeoman's task, and there are so many pieces of changing culture, and we're all anxious for this to change quickly, yet at the same time understand that that can't happen. It's not a directive that can be given. And I just, on behalf of all of us, teachers, principals, the two of you have done a phenomenal job this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was just going to make one comment
Sure.
about your PACE newsletter and website.
Yeah.
Could it be helpful for you to partner somehow with the PTA? Because I know they have a, what's it called? The SAGE. Thank you. The
Right.
SAGE committee. And I wondered if perhaps just that voice that, you could help share the information that you've got to share with the community and partner with the PTA in some way. That might be an option.
Absolutely, yes.
So a couple of things on, I think, my first note after the Diversity Advisory Committee's report, my note was, next year's report, I think we want to have you guys tell us how we need to do all of these recommendations, because I mean there's a lot there, and it's very meaty. Now that said, I think with your presentation, we are doing a lot of things, and with the EOS, we all already doing a lot of things. So I think next year, of course we'll talk about this in August, but the next task may be the how and the specifics, and maybe next year what we're talking about are successful implementation of things, which would be fantastic, phenomenal. I think for the first year, y'all did tremendous amount of work, and I applaud the efforts for that. One comment that stuck with me is I love the fact that the Diversity Advisory Committee, one of their initiatives was focused on parents. The quote, and I'm going to mangle it, but first generation students need mentors, and that's true. Parents of first generation students need mentors as well. And so the fact that we're trying to link parents and get a mentor relationship establishes a tremendous base that will pay dividends for years and years and years. And so I'm very anxious to see where we go with that, because I think that you start there at that foundation and you can build a lot upon that. So great work.
May I
Yeah.
a little bit to that? Actually, we were about to have a person come from the community and leadership group come to meet us, and one of the things that they do, actually, they are a group of leaders who work for corporations, and they actually make contact with the parents to develop that leadership. So if Plano ISD can find ways to kind of enable those times, I think that would be really quite amazing. Because also my other point on the cost versus classes, a lot of first generation parents need to see why should my child take AP courses, like how it translates that AP courses equals to your first year gen ed courses in college and money saving, you know. So till you speak out in those clear terms, you know, then you get the buy-in from the parents.
Yeah, and I can't speak in pure guarantees from this position, but in a hypothetical guarantee, I guarantee you that if there's a need that a child wants to take a higher level course and there's a need, a financial need, this community will meet that need. And so it's just let's get all those kids that we can there.
I wanted to, actually, I wrote the same word, mentors. I latched onto that word as well. Do you know how many mentors do you need? Do you have a database? Who will need mentors? And that could help. I mean, I agree with David. There are a lot of people who would like to mentor, who can mentor. And I know that I get a lot of requests from people saying, I'd like to mentor someone. Can you refer me? And so if we could somehow, somewhere had the list of here's how many mentors you need, here's who the kids are or the parents or anyone, here's what the need is, we can probably do the matchmaking, but we'll need to have that input.
As far as student mentors go, one of the beautiful things that came out of the Equal Opportunity Schoolwork is students, they were surveyed and they designated who were their trusted adults in the district, and that's kind of a nice beginning place for mentors to start to build that connection. And also our outreach partners, one of whom we've already begun working with, is talking about bringing in fraternity members and sorority members from historically black colleges and universities to work with that student population, and he is tied into the community in a similar way. As when you're talking about numbers, we're talking about a lot of people, which doesn't mean we can't get it done. It's just it would be many people. Just to give you a little example of we have many successes, but just to help illustrate this, at McMillan High School, for example, last year they had about 250 students signed up for AP Human Geography, and next year we have 380. So we're seeing huge jumps in starting to close that achievement gap. So we just have to start wrapping ourselves around how many people we're talking about. But between these two committees and the EOS group, I can tell you that's something we're very serious about.
Well, I'd just like to say that my daughter is a college recruiter and at Georgetown, and she's very, very interested in talking to the parents as well as the counselors as well as the students, because there's so many changes that are going on in recruiting and how they're, you know, pulling people and so forth, and she really wants Plano to be a big part of all of the changes and all the new things that are going on. So I hope to be in contact with you all very soon about some.
We welcome all hands on deck.
Okay, great.
You know, one response to that is I used to be registrar of Anabaptist Mennonite Biblical Seminary in Elkhart, Indiana, and our seminary had a Peace Studies program, and part of the Peace Studies program was to go and mentor kids in the inner city of Elkhart, Indiana. So, and that included the staff and the faculty as well got on board with that. So I think that being here in like close to so many big universities, I know SMU has a conflict resolution program, and so does UTD. I'm sure we will be able to make some significant connections with those departments to also have students come in, you know, graduate students to come in to do some of the mentoring.
You know, and that all hands on deck theory, and these are overlapping and they're not by accident. And the fact of the matter is, this is the great thing that I just shared with Ms. Bender. These committees, this is the real work this district is trying to do. And as it relates to some of the, I've met personally with LULAC, with the Plano Community Forum, with some faith-based groups. We've had the same message. You know, this is tough work. And in Plano ISD, we're all in. Our schools are committed to it. But it's going to take everybody. And we all got to get around our young people and support them and tell them, look, if Plano ISD believes you can do it, you must be able to do it. So let's go get after that. And I think we're internally as an organization certainly working hard to deliver on that. Teresa just recently did a great job sharing with our high school folks the kind of support we're going to give for teachers, for kids. But it is all hands on deck, and we need everybody to come in. If this was an easy thing to do, it would happen all over the place. But the reality is it doesn't virtually happen anywhere. We are stepping out and doing very, very difficult work that has life-changing implications. And so all hands on deck is what it's going to take. And so I thank you for the work. We're going to take very seriously those things you've brought to the table. And we're going to come back and say, now, keep working with people you have, because that is what it's going to take. It really is.
So, closing, are there other board members who'd like to make a comment or an observation? So, here are my thoughts. I'm so glad that we made these objectives this year for these committees, because what we have received in return has been purposeful. I think it's purposeful for us, and I hope it's made you feel like your work meant something and like we were going to do something with it, because it's so valuable. So I'm really glad about that. And we deal with so many things on the board and the cabinet, and you deal with so many things. I don't want to lose the quality of the content of the report. I don't want it just to be the report and now check, and we move on to a new goal next year and you work on that, check. I want to make sure that it's connected to the implementation. And Teresa, because this is your department also that you lead, you're in an authoritative role to implement some things. It's a little different in the diversity committee because, it's just different. We're all over the organization, and you don't have the authority to implement everywhere else. So I just want to talk about that for a minute. In terms of priority, Nisha and Autrey and Dolly, if you think about next year, you've listed a lot of wonderful things to do. I don't think we can do all of them at once. Prioritize and tell me what are the top 3 things that you think we need to do this coming year. I've heard the EOS study is about secondary right now. That's where all the effort is being focused. It will come down to elementary, but there's a reason for that. Your recommendations, some of them start at elementary and say, we need to put the building blocks in place to put the structures so they can be prepared. Can you list a couple of things that you think we need to make sure happen now? Because I don't want to lose those things. And if you don't know the answer right now, that's fine. You can come back later. And you can, through Dr. Bingley, send an email. But I just want to emphasize, I don't want to lose the quality and the content of what you've done, but tell us what we need to do now.
To
if you can.
Make sure that you are communicating with the parents, because the parents are making the decisions on behalf of the children whether they will take that AP class or not. Because in 8th grade, the parents are meeting with the counselor to set a 4-year plan for the next 4 years. So that is very, very key. Parents play a huge role, and you need to know one Hispanic person who has a deep reach into the Hispanic community. You need to know one African American family that has a deep reach into the African American community, because that is your contact point, and that is the place people are going to listen to them. So, and that has been my experience on the PTA of both Bethany Elementary and Schimmelpfennig Middle School, where if you know one parent who can reach to the other parents, there will be a bigger involvement.
So those community navigators are very key.
And that's what Teresa was describing in the 2. I think we found 2, that was a great way to express that. 2 individuals who reach deeply into both communities.
Okay, so if there's a priority for next year, it's reaching the parents through folks that they trust
Yes.
and know, and educating them
Yes.
so they can influence not just their children's decisions, but maybe their own behavior to be
And also
supportive.
other parents' behaviors.
Right.
around them.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I would certainly invite your feedback, particularly as we gather doing the work for the K through 8 Academy initiative. Parental engagement is very important, and I think one of our challenges in some of our communities, the mobility is so high. I don't know if there's anyone who reaches in to those communities, and if they really are communities, because they turn over so often. So I would really invite your thinking, your advice, your counsel on how even in a highly mobile area, we could start to touch parents and children better.
Yeah, churches.
The PTA and
Right now, there is a huge push for people to get together, and that village is coming back. So you got to get that village lead. Yes, we have to get to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
At most of our regular meetings, we have policies on the agenda for the board's consideration. These policies have undergone prior review by the district's attorney and by each board member. Tonight, we have 4 policies. I invite Carla Oliver to introduce each one, starting with the first item A.
Thank you, President Bender.
5 policies, I can't count.
Well,
Thank you.
I didn't think you would notice if I threw an extra one in there. EIA local academic achievement grade and progress reports to parents. This policy is presented for approval under first reading and will be presented for adoption under second reading at another meeting. And it was, I would say this policy revision was made for consistency with grading currently in place for grades 3 through 5 and curriculum that should no longer be designed as integrated. So there are slight revisions to that policy you've seen in your
Okay.
study.
So do I have a motion to approve EIA local as presented?
I move that we approve EIA local on first reading of this policy.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next policy is EIA local.
Thank you. That policy also refers to grading progress reports to parents in regard to examinations. And this policy is presented for approval under first reading and will be presented for adoption under second reading at a subsequent meeting.
Do I have a proposal? Do I have a motion to approve EIA local as presented?
I move that we approve EIA local as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item C is EIC local.
Thank you. This policy refers to academic achievement and class ranking. It's presented for adoption under second reading. So this would be your second glance at this policy. This policy will create better differentiation for the top 10% rule and also valedictorian/salutatorian at the Plano Academy High School.
So will this come back for final reading
This
following
is-
second, or is
This
this
is the
second
second reading.
and
This
final
is final.
reading? Okay. So do I have a motion to adopt policy EIC local on second and final reading?
I
I move that we adopt policy EIC local for second reading.
All right, do I have a second?
second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item D is EIE local.
This policy refers to academic achievement regarding retention and promotion. This policy is presented for approval under first reading and then will then be presented for adoption under second reading at a subsequent meeting. And the revisions to policy EIE local were made to align with current practice, again in regard to retention and promotion.
Do I have a motion to approve EIE local on first reading?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second, I just wanted to make a comment before we vote that the recommendation actually says second reading. I believe it is the first.
For EIE?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Mine says first.
I'm
Mine says
sorry,
first.
I'm looking at sort of
Oh.
my cheat sheet notes.
It says approved first reading. Oh, I'm sorry, it will be presented on this
Right,
second reading,
it's
not
approval
today.
for first reading tonight, and then will be brought back for adoption under a second reading at a subsequent meeting.
No further questions for this witness.
So we've had a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Last policy is FNF local.
Thank you. This policy refers to student rights and responsibilities regarding interrogations and searches. This policy is presented for approval under first reading tonight and will be presented for adoption under second reading at a subsequent meeting. And it's in regard to security screening procedures at special program campuses in order to maintain a safe and secure learning environment.
Do I have a motion to approve policy FNF local on first reading?
I move to approve policy FNF local in first reading.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously.
I have a quick question about that one.
Okay.
Do we actually have metal detectors at these campuses? I'm just not aware of that.
We don't currently, that's why we're bringing this forward. We are
Okay.
looking at that for next year.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so the last item on the agenda is the public comment section. And I just need a second here to find the appropriate language to open that part of the meeting. I know I have it. It's hidden.
Ms. Bender, on my script, it's on page 11 at the bottom of the page.
Thank you. Okay, I've changed mine because I inserted some stuff.
I believe we have a
So do
copy
you have a
for you
copy?
here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Normally, I read this at the beginning of the meeting, but because we didn't have any comments. Oh, not this part, Leslie. The very beginning part that has all the legal language.
Oh, here.
Okay, we're not going to worry about that. So I will now convene the 15-minute public comment session on non-agenda topics. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. Ms. Oliver, the comment cards, you have 4 comment cards. So since I don't have the language, I'll just explain how it works. Ms. Mobius is the secretary, and she will keep a 3-minute timer, thank you, for each speaker. And she will wave to you when you have 1 minute left so that you know you have 1 minute left. We don't have a buzzer to, say you're done, but we're just asking that you will be respectful of the timekeeping, please. When you speak, you can speak to us, but we can't speak back to you, okay? So, with one exception. If what you have to say is factually incorrect, then we may direct you to it may be a cabinet member resource at a later time to resolve that information, okay? So if you ask us questions, we can't answer them in this setting because it's not a posted agenda item. So, Carla, would you please call the first speaker, please?
Thank you, President Bender. If you would allow me just a moment, I'd like to add something to what you said. And it was on the back of your speaker cards that some of our members filled out to speak tonight. But I would like to remind everyone as speakers that in accordance with state law, public comment may not be used to voice a complaint involving the naming of specific individuals, including but not limited to names of district employees or students. Additionally, no information that may be reasonably linked to an individual may be spoken about during public comment. So we just ask that you refrain from those kinds of things, and if you do, we'll just ask for you to pause and maybe refrain and rephrase your comments. So with that, I'll call Mr. Watson forward.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. When it comes to special education, one of the largest complaints that I see from educators is that they feel really helpless. Teachers feel like they're untrained and ill-prepared for an emotional outburst when a child with autism has a breakdown. Student aides feel a little shocked when a child with severe social anxiety rebels when they ask them to speak in front of the class, situations such as those. And it affects substitute teachers as well. I see this in teacher forums, blogs, news story comments. I see these comments all over the United States and the UK, so this is a global issue. And that's why I'm requesting that if it hasn't already been implemented, that Plano ISD implements a mandatory training for all staff engaged with special needs students, including student aides and teacher aides and substitute teachers. The training needs to be mandatory because the question of whether or not a special needs student is going to be in the classroom is no longer a matter of if, it's more of a matter of when. Especially when you look at the current statistics from a Washington Post story that was posted in November of 2015. It stated that autism cases alone jumped to 1 in 45. That's 2.2% of all children from ages 3 to 17. That's a jump from 1.4% in the years of 2011 to 2013. As you well know, that's just a small sliver of the full spectrum of what we cover under special ed. So that's why I'm encouraging you to please make this a mandatory training. The training should include practical steps toward de-escalation, elopement mitigation, proper CPI restraint techniques with an emphasis that those are absolute last resort only. Review of IDEA and how that applies to IEP formation and implementation, and an overview of stereotypical behaviors for individuals with autism, anxiety, and other issues such as that, so that teachers are aware. By providing these classes to the educators, you not only provide them with a firm foundation for a distraction-free classroom, but you also prove to your employees that they as educators are a priority. You're proving that you're not setting them up for failure for not knowing what they're getting into, but you're preparing them for the difficult but rewarding work of educating special needs students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Watson. I was reminded not only for me to lean a little closer to the microphone, but also for our speakers at the podium, if you will please speak directly, very close into the microphone. So our next speaker would be Mary Tate.
Good evening. My name is Mary Tate, and I stand before you this evening as a concerned Carlisle Elementary School parent. I have 3 kids, one who has attended Carlisle and is now at Schimmelpfennig. He has had an IEP since beginning his formal education at Beatty Early Childhood School 8 years ago. I have a son who has just completed the 1st grade, and I will have an incoming kindergartner next year. Over the last 2 years, there has been a significant rate of turnover in the teacher population at Carlisle. By the end of the 2014-2015 school year, Carlisle had lost a total of 12 teachers. A letter dated June 5th, 2015 was sent home to parents notifying them that the teachers would not be returning to Carlisle for the following school year. To my knowledge, at this time, 7 teachers will not be returning in August for the 2016-2017 academic school year. There was no letter sent home to address or thank staff and teachers for their service. When compared to the other 2 elementary schools that feed into Schimmelpfennig Middle School, there is a drastic difference in the turnover rate. My facts, I hope, are accurate. I contacted staff members and teachers within those schools, and they provided me with these numbers. Matthews lost 1 teacher during the 2014-2015 school year, and they will have 6 who will not be returning in August. Bethany Elementary has lost a total of 3 teachers in 2 years. Carlisle has nearly doubled that rate. This is an immediate red flag to parents and community members that there is an eternal issue that is not being recognized or fully addressed. As in many sectors, whether it be business, government, or education, a lack of continuity and frequent turnover can have a highly detrimental effect on the work environment. I intentionally use the word lost to express my concern because we, the Carlisle community, have lost excellent teachers to other schools, other districts, and other professions. It is my hope that as my elected representatives, you will not let the information that was just shared with you fall on deaf ears, but rather investigate further to ensure that matters within Carlisle and all of our schools are being handled in an ethical and professional manner. It is my intention to remain an advocate for our children as they are the ones ultimately affected by our actions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Next, we have Andrew McQuarrie. I hope I said your last name correctly.
Hello, yes, my name is Andrew, and I too come from Carlisle Elementary community. I stand here as a member of that community, as a parent of a now 5th grader, as a member of our local PTA, as a husband, board member for 2 years of the PTA. I've been a member of the Watchdogs volunteer program for 4 years. I was assistant watchdog top dog this year, and I would love to be taking that program over next year as top dog for our school. I come here to support Mary Tate and any other parents who couldn't be here tonight to just reiterate the same things, that we see the turnover, we see the and we want to make sure that you guys hear that from us and hear that there is concern there. One thing that I keyed on during listening to you guys tonight is the great discussion around the mentoring program. And I wanted to bring up that Carlisle has had a thriving mentoring program for 10 plus years until this year. And for some reason this year it basically got dropped and now seems to be defunct. I'm not sure what happened, but in conversation, people just didn't know why the mentoring program didn't happen this year like it had in years past. So that's something that I'd like to bring up and say that we too agree that that needs to be there, and for some reason it's not. To summarize, I just want to reiterate that I'm going to support the folks who came in those reports here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ernest, I would say Dr. Ernest Harane. Harane. Did I get it close?
You did. You did. Thank you so much, Carl. How are you doing? Thank you, Board, for letting me address you. I just wanted to speak to the issue of Plano Senior High School being put under any pressure to put any emblematic symbols on their caps and gowns signifying any honors that their students may have achieved. If the other senior highs want to do that, that's fine, but that should be left up to each one of the senior high schools. When we designed, I had the opportunity to work for the Plano School District for 34 years as director of curriculum, and retired as Executive Director of Personnel Evaluation and Staff Development before I taught at the college level, I was involved in the design of Plano Senior High School. We designed it so that when you walked in Building B, you walked down the offices to the right, and then there were math classrooms to the left, and there was vocational programs at the very end of that hall with a big window that you could look down and see shops, you could see paint and body, you could see air conditioning, you could see everything that was being done. And the reason for that was so that there would be a sense of those students knowing that they were a part of a school and not in the back end of a school that sometimes doesn't get the notice that they should. Hi, Susan. So, at any rate, I'm for recognizing students and doing it in a way that is in keeping with the honors that they receive. But if Plano Senior High so desires to not do that, then I would hope that the board would support them in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is that all of our speakers?
Yes, President Bender, that concludes our speakers.
So with no further business, the meeting of this Board of Trustees is adjourned.
I'm going to watch the Indians.